Hello and welcome to Indianomics. What the world most feared has happened. President Trump has issued the executive order on reciprocal tariffs. And the fear is that since India has the highest tariffs, or among the highest tariffs, our exports to the US could be hit. But there are still too many questions. Will it be item-wise reciprocation, or will all Indian exports be charged an average higher tariff? Also, will we reach a stage where India charges different tariffs on US goods and different on others? What is the impact going to be on the Indian economy and which companies? For all these questions, I'm joined by a redoubtable expert, Professor Arvind Panagariya, the Jagdish Bhagwati Professor of Indian Political Economy at Columbia University, and of course, we know him as the chairman of India's 16th Finance Commission. Today, of course, I can't ask him about the Finance Commission. Dr. Panagariya, thank you very much for staying up for us. First, of course, like I told you, the order has been signed with effect from April 1st. Now, how do you see these tariffs evolving? You know, we charge probably 100% or something on some US automobiles. So will they charge on our cars? How does it work?
As I interpreted what President Trump is saying is that if my products face these high tariffs, I am going to subject you to the same, meaning your products to the same high tariffs. So it's not the same products because, you know, India exports different products to the United States than the ones that the United States exports to India. What he's talking about is that generally the exports of each country ought to face the same tariff. And since the Indian tariffs on US goods are significantly higher than those faced by Indian goods exports to the US, he wants to raise the US tariffs on the goods coming from India.
Okay, we probably all of us have understood it that way, and some economists have calculated that India's average import duties on US goods is 9.5%, while US charges 2% on our exports. So should we assume that US will charge 9.5% on all our exports?
Doubtful, because this is going to be product by product. You know, certain products coming from the US into India face much higher tariffs than 9.5%. And so certain products going out of India into the US may similarly face significantly higher tariffs than 9.5.
Okay. So maybe we will only slash on cars and Harley Davidson and maybe Jack Daniels. We don't know. But, you know, Dr. Panagariya, I have a stock market audience listening to me. So should they assume that profits of all Indian exporting companies are likely to be hurt?
Well, I think products you can figure, right? Because products that we are exporting to the US are the ones which are likely to be impacted. Which ones will be impacted, how much, that I don't think we can know. I think there is going to be, you know, bilateral negotiation between India and the United States. Therefore, I mean, my hope is that that negotiation will precede any actual final decisions by the United States in terms of imposition of extra tariffs on India.
Okay, so what about the other side of the worry? Should we worry about Indian companies that are likely to get attacked by cheaper competing goods from the US? That is, are our markets likely to be flooded with cheaper cars, cheaper Harley Davidsons, etc.?
Well, that depends on what the negotiation is, Latha, because you know, whether India agrees to lower its tariffs or you know, there is a retaliatory kind of action. That all will depend on how the negotiation goes. I mean, at this point, I would imagine that all options are open. Okay. If the United, you know, one possibility is that US gives us some good market access and we give US good market access. Uh, this is a win-win. In this case, we are lowering our tariffs on the US goods, and US is lowering some of the tariffs on what we export to the US. Um, that's a win-win. But it may also happen that the two countries can't come to an agreement, and then each country ends up actually imposing higher tariffs on the other.
No, I agree. We have to wait till April 1st. But, you know, the stock market likes to take an advanced position. So can we conclude that exports, textile exports, we export a lot of textiles to the US. Can we conclude that those companies may be impacted?
Right. And this is where it seems to me that, you know, a negotiation that brings down actually the tariffs in our country on the US products and also brings down tariffs on our products in the US would be a win-win. This is where, you know, in fact, you know, on products like apparel, we could even get some treatment under the GSP, the Generalized System of Preferences, from the US. That will be perfectly legitimate thing for the US to do. And in turn, we could lower our tariffs on some of the goods. You know, if it is automobile, for example, I think reducing tariff on automobile is in our own personal interest. I mean, I've long argued that automobile has been protected for long enough, for 75 years. And in any case, such high tariff protection is only at the expense of our own consumers. In the end, you know, for a car like Camry, consumers in India pay probably 1.5 times the price that prevails in the global marketplace. If you buy the same car in the United States or Japan, it will be probably 1/3 less than what the customers in India are paying. So we also need to make our car industry more competitive, more productive, more efficient. And so in this sense, I think, you know, if the bargain is something along those lines, where we have excessively high tariffs, I think we'll win by seeking access at lower tariffs in the US market for our goods like textiles and clothing. And we'll also benefit actually from our own liberalization on products like the automobiles.
No, actually, I'm very happy that you alerted us to this. Otherwise, you know, the markets could have gone ham-handed after textile exports or something like that. Actually, we could be advantaged if the negotiation gives us that generalized system of preferences access to US markets. Okay, now one more industry I want to ask you that it comes to the mind is pharmaceuticals. Will our pharma companies be in danger of having to lower their prices or lower their exports or lower their margins?
Obviously, there is a vulnerability there because these exports are also large, and you know, and so therefore the scope for damage is large, and this is why I think, you know, we should go in with a very open mind, and also keeping in mind that at the end of the day, there is some adjustment that will happen if we were to liberalize some of our products as per the demands of the United States in exchange for lower tariffs or avoiding higher tariffs in this process.
Okay.
But we should go in, you know, with the open mind and with the understanding that in the end, after some adjustment, as per our own past experience, the industry will come out stronger. Manufacturing will come out stronger.
Okay. Now, one more worry I have is, if we lower tariffs for the US, do we have to lower it for all countries? For instance, I was speaking to the Amul managing director. We now have 60% tariff on skimmed milk powder. If we lower it, other countries like, you know, New Zealand can dump milk powder on us. So can we have separate tariffs for the US and another one for other countries?
That is a very good question. That is a very good question because if it is reduced preferentially, meaning that we reduce it on the US but not the rest, that will almost certainly be WTO inconsistent because we have the commitment to follow the most favored nation clause. Now, this is where things get a bit complicated. We'll have to see what the US itself does. If US is also choosing its tariffs differentially on the same product on different countries, then US itself will also be in violation. And at that point, we'll have to think exactly how do we want to proceed. And this is where some political economy will matter also. Generally, trade economists would say that even if the United States does it non-differential, does it kind of in a discriminatory way, we should still sort of perhaps stick to the non-discriminatory way of doing it because it has an advantage because then you get your product from the cheapest source. You see, so there is that advantage, but at the same time, part of their bargain may be that the US wants us to reduce preferentially on US alone.
Yes.
So it's very much going to depend on what kind of negotiation takes place. Now, ultimately today, unfortunately, this is a very unfortunate aspect of the global trading system, that the appellate body of the WTO is not operational. And in a way, therefore, countries are getting away with all sorts of WTO inconsistent measures. Starting from the original steel and aluminum tariffs by the United States during the first term of President Trump, to many of the then responses by the other countries and also the reciprocal tariffs that were imposed by the United States on China and by China on the United States. They were all discriminatory. And there's nothing very much, each country can go in and challenge the other on it. But in the end, there is no recourse because the WTO can at most appoint a panel. The panel may rule against you, but then you still have the right to appeal it to the appellate body. But there is no appellate body because there are not enough judges there. And therefore, in a way, the WTO system is not quite functioning in the way it is supposed to function. Countries can get away by taking actions that clearly violate the WTO rules, and yet there is no process available to remedy that.
Oh, that's a very important thing you're telling us, that, under current WTO rules, we cannot have differential tariffs, but we don't know how it will play out. Dr. Panagariya, please stay on. I have to take a commercial break, but I have more questions on how this entire WTO system will work out and how the two economies, India and the US, will be impacted. All that coming after the break. Welcome back to Indianomics. We've been speaking with Dr. Arvind Panagariya, the well-known international trade economist from Columbia University, also chairman of the 16th Finance Commission. But this one is all on international trade and tariffs that the US is threatening to impose. Dr. Panagariya, thank you very much for staying on. Now, we were talking about the WTO and how it doesn't allow differential tariffs. So now with President Trump asking for special tariffs, lower tariffs, is there a danger that WTO itself, the system may break down if Trump demands different tariffs?
No, I mean, look, some of it has already happened because the US tariffs on China and Chinese tariffs on US, these are clearly in violation. Under normal circumstances, they would have been challenged in the WTO. But right now you can challenge, but challenge is still possible but it can't go beyond the ruling by the panel, which is not final, because if the aggrieved party says that I want to appeal it, then it has to have that process available, but that process is not there. And so it's already happening. In a way, if you think about it, the sanctions on Russia were also unilateral. They were also discriminatory. But there is no recourse.
Okay, so maybe countries will behave themselves simply because it is in everyone's, beneficial interest. Okay, let me come to another angle. Will these tariffs not increase inflation in the US, and therefore won't it create popular pressure in the US against higher tariffs?
So this is all, still at a speculative level, because President Trump is also doing many other things, right? Among them, most prominently, a lot of spending is being cut. Now, that is going to be anti-inflationary. And so what is the net effect? We don't know. So this is all complicated. Also, remember that while tariffs increase the prices of the imported goods, to the extent that that also means reduced exports, because now you don't have to pay for as many, so therefore reduction in tariffs also, reduction in imports also, in an indirect way, leads to or results in a reduction in exports. Well, that is going to lower the prices of the exportable goods, and how the two ultimately combine to generate overall price increase or reduction would depend on various elasticities and how much the export prices fall and how much the import prices rise.
Well, that's very right, sir. We can't think of it as ceteris paribus, other things being equal. This is a general equilibrium way of looking at the economy. Another very specific worry for us, what about our services, our IT exports? Will they be spared, or will they also be taxed?
President Trump is talking mostly in terms of tariffs. And obviously in his mind, there is also a revenue objective, because he wants to also do something to the income tax in the United States. So he believes, that the US till 1911 really had no income tax, and revenues all came from tariffs. And so in some ways, he also talked about this external revenue service, right? Instead of IRS, with internal revenue service, is the ERS, external revenue service, so focusing on tariff as the source of revenue. So from everything that he has said so far, it seems to me that this is about restrictions being imposed on merchandise imports. Most likely services are not on the table yet. Certainly right now they're not. And that would also be consistent with the fact that the president is interested in revenue.
That's a very big relief, because now our services exports are becoming more than our goods, our merchandise exports. So that's a big relief. Now, let me come to an Indian point of view, since political economy of India is your specialization. How do you see the growth headwinds impacting Indian economy, India's GDP in FY26? Will we even make it to that 6.5% GDP target, which everyone's talking about?
Well, 6.5, I think we'll get there. You're talking of FY26. Okay, not 25. No, we'll get 6.5, maybe even 7. Look, right now, even for the FY25, we don't have the full data, and we are just talking about on the basis of mostly the first half of the year. So one needs to wait and see. But headwinds are there, and I think we do need to take some actions on economic reforms. because our experience for the past 30 years has been that, you undertake certain reforms, growth accelerates, but then at some point, you begin to see some slowdown. You have to do more reforms, and that process has continued. And I think we will need to go back and see, what more reforms can be done. The budget has done something. I see some pretty good positives there. Clearly, the income tax reform that I'd been talking about is almost done now,
Yes.
because in effect, that reform requires cleaning up of the exemptions. And now that most of the taxpayers anyway are going to be filing under this alternative tax schedule, I think that it will basically clean up all the exemption raj.
Yeah, of course, the new direct tax code is about to be passed. But separately said, the budget gave us tax cuts. Then the Reserve Bank gave us a rate cut. We are all hoping for a consumption-led growth. But given the global headwinds, the tariff headwinds, do you think growth will suffer?
It depends on how we handle, what the negotiations comes through. Suppose that the negotiation results in actually India liberalizing and United States liberalizing for Indian products. Well, that's a win-win. That would actually add to growth, not subtract from it.
Yes.
So much will depend on how this negotiation pans out.
Okay, a point taken, Dr. Panagariya. On that positive note, let's wind this conversation that we probably will have positive conversations with the United States, and it will be a general lowering of tariffs for everyone, and hence, better productivity for both economies. And therefore, growth will not suffer. Thank you very much, Dr. Panagariya, for joining and explaining so many nuances to us. Well, that's it on this edition of Indianomics, a very special edition. Thank you very much for watching.